Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Michael Stumo joining us from the Coalition for a Prosperous America. Michael, good to have you with us.
Hi, great to be here.
So the trade war, it continues. We have farmers saying no one will buy our products. Is it bad, or is this just media hype?
Well, it's good for the overall economy right now. Unemployment is low. Inflation is low. Wages are up. We're growing faster than any other major economy. But in agriculture, we need a better plan to get farmers immediate relief and a longer-term plan to control supply and have an agro-industrial strategy.
Well, what does that mean, though, for the farmers that are taking it on the chin?
It means that right now it's tough in agriculture country. That's for sure. It's the Sonny Perdue needs to get going and provide some more relief for farmers immediately and ranchers, and it's a big problem. But in the meantime, we're going to in the medium term, the global commodity markets are going to have to shift where we, it's a fungible commodity. It's global supply and demand. And when we shift from the Chinese market to other markets, just like we saw in January, the U.S. price levels out with the world price. But again, overall, we need an agro-industrial strategy, and we need to be more aggressive in protecting the farmers and ranchers, even as the rest of the economy is doing well from growing from the trade intervention.
When we take a look at China, last week manipulating its currency like it's done in the past, what does that mean for our ordinary Americans?
When China manipulates or other countries manipulate, they push the dollar up. They buy a lot of dollars, assets. They push the dollar up, making our goods and services non-competitive and our agricultural products. They push their own currency value down. And people who think about a strong dollar as a strong country don't really get the fact that when other countries manipulate, they actually get stronger when they push their own exchange rate or their own currency lower so they can sell more goods. And so President finally, after Clinton didn't name China as a currency manipulator, Bush didn't, and Obama didn't, Trump did, and that's triggering a series of steps that could lead to the U.S. taking control of the overvalued, misaligned, non-competitive dollar and moving the dollar exchange rate to a competitive price. And because agricultural commodities are very sensitive to a strong dollar, making them expensive overseas, moving the dollar into a competitive place can be extremely good for soybean, wheat, and corn farmers.
Oh, that is good news for them.
If the dollar is, as we've estimated, 27% overvalued, and if the administration or, if we were to wave a magic wand and realign the dollar to where it should be to a level that would balance trade, Purdue University research has shown that there's such a relationship between the dollar price and soybean prices that soybean prices could increase up to 63% with that dollar realignment.
Boy, that is good. What about the markets? They were a little shaky on all of this.
The stock markets? Sure. We saw it last year when the tariffs came into effect, starting in January with the solar tariff, February with clothes washer, and then March, April with steel, and then June, July with China. And the markets always had a short-term reaction, but the stock market climbed all last year. And really the tariffs don't affect the stock market beyond, a few days. It's the Fed interest rates, the money supply. That's really the determinant with the stock markets. So if you see a tariff announcement bring the stock markets down for a couple of days, you should treat it as a buying opportunity. But the real economy is doing quite well, except a notable exception in agriculture.
Michael Stumo joining us from the Coalition for a Prosperous America. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Michael, we'll get you out on a couple more questions. How do the Chinese see this?
The Chinese are in trouble. China has a trade deficit with the rest of the world. They get to surplus by selling a lot more goods to us than they buy from us. Germany, Japan, South Korea don't have the China problem that we do. And so they need to have the U.S. consumer market to sell to in order to keep their economy growing at a rate that will keep the citizens happy enough that they will accept the repression and not revolt. If we, as we need to, start phasing China out of our market so that they don't become the next global superpower, they need to find somewhere else to sell their oversupply. If they can't find it, they go into recession, people go out of work, and their internal chaos increases. So this is a long road to China decoupling, I think. The next stages in this trade war are going to continue to be exchange rate management by the dollar, so we don't have the dollar so non-competitively high, and China's growth will slow, their internal protests will increase. And so we're really at an inflection point with the U.S.-China relationship and with China's growth in the future.
And finally, one more time to the farmers, what would you say to them?
They need to support dollar realignment, support a new bill by Senators Baldwin of Wisconsin and Josh Hawley of Missouri that would require the Federal Reserve to manage the exchange rate to keep the dollar from being overvalued. That's very good for agricultural prices in the U.S. And they need to tell the USDA and the administration to get more aggressive on immediate relief and having a strategy for rural America so we can get prices that we can break even and make a little money for in agriculture. And that's going to take not free trade, it's going to take a government plan and program to get that done.
Michael Stumo, the Coalition for a Prosperous America. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Always appreciate you. Let's go to the phones, and we go to Sherlock, who's been very patient with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Sherlock.
Well, good morning, Kevin. Oh, what an eclectic program you do have occasionally. I originally called in to help out Hank to assist him within regard if he thinks there was a necessity for a constitutional amendment for within regard to property tax. Not necessary. And then we went into the various rabbit holes, like your most recent guest. We're going to money diminution within regard to China and United States, which we already did. We are a quote-unquote money manipulator when we have budgets and deficits, but we won't go there. One last thing I might mention, and that is I see, as you mentioned, where the Boise trustees changed the name from my high school from Boise Braves to Boise Brave, correct?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. First, what is now referred to as the Treasure Valley was, before that, the Boise Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And then, historically, before that, it was the Peace Valley, whereas the Indian tribes would come and trade. People don't know, the average individual does not know that. But the Bannock tribes were in eastern Idaho. They had nothing to say over here. They didn't trade. Nez Perce, Paiutes, etc., those Indians traded. As recently, I might mention, is 1955. But that's regardless. We'll go back to my original reason to call, is that within regards to Hank from Boise, is that property taxes, etc., are all hinged within regard of our current Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, where you have the right to own property. Now, and then I'll get off, but Tor Hank and anybody else listening, Title 55 of the Idaho Code controls the controlling law within regard to real estate. That is property. It's all right there, and I need not, it's a very simple solution, but it would require a little bit of, shall we say, get off your couch and read up on certain things within that title, and they are safe from having their property taken from them through property taxes. Now you have a good day.
All right, Sherlock, very in-depth conversation there. Liberty Linda joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Liberty Linda.
Yeah, we've heard that before. Anyway, okay, let's see. Who do we have to vote for president next time? Let's see. We have Trump. Then we have Trump. And then we really have that really, really great guy, Trump. So my suggestion is that we should put that name on our calendars on Election Day and vote Trump. See, that's really the only selection we have. You know, I think he will go up against Biden, Kevin. I don't know if you thought about that. Anyway, yeah, and Biden, who is he going to choose as his running mate is the question.
Well, you got me. I didn't know we were talking presidential politics, but it seems Katie barred the door. Everybody just kind of makes up the rules as we go.
I agree with you. I agree, but I think all
of course you do, because you're running wild.
I always run wild.
Yes, you do.
But you know, I think that a lot of people are talking about Mrs. Obama would be his running mate. And so anyway, it's really interesting what's going on because most of the Democrats are just too far left. And but I think if you put her on his ticket, then he may have a few votes there. But other than that, I suggest everybody vote for Trump again since he's doing such a wonderful job for our country.
Okay, Liberty Linda, appreciate the insight. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And good morning. By the way, a video that is going viral. It is so disgusting that we can't even talk about it right now. We could have people try to bleep it out, but there's unfortunately an F-bomb in every other word of it. And it is, and if you watch CNN, it is of their biggest star, Chris Cuomo. Now, Chris Cuomo was out with his family, having a good time, I suppose, and somebody came up to him and called him Fredo, you know, from The Godfather. And there are many people, our great friend Rush Limbaugh, for one of them, calls Chris Cuomo Fredo, the dumb brother of all the Cuomos. And so Cuomo starts getting huffy and puffy. He's out with his family. He goes, "Do you know who I am? I'm an anchor on CNN." And you really see the left. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. And by the way, it's interesting. Sean Hannity, who has more compassion than most people will ever know, defending Chris Cuomo on Twitter. But for me, I kind of see it this way. Now, you can go to Drudge. You can go to the Kevin Miller Show Facebook page, and you can see it. It is so profanity-laced. It is impossible. It would just be nothing but bleep, 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 punk, bleep, blah, blah, blah. But it shows you that the left can dish it out, and when someone comes up to them and calls them Fredo, he compares it to the N-word. He says, For Italian Americans, that's the equivalent of the N-word. Now, is that the most absurd, woke idea that you've ever heard of? That Chris Cuomo, who has come from a rich family, who has worked very hard, who has distinguished himself prior to CNN as a pretty darn good journalist, as one of these type A types that get the story, when someone calls them a name, they flip out. Now, let's remember what happened to Sarah Sanders. She's out with her family, and somebody says, I'm not going to serve the press secretary of the President of the United States because you work for Donald Trump. Okay? You have Kellyanne Conway going to places and people screaming at her. This happens to people on the right all the time. So, Mr. Cuomo, and I urge you to watch the video. Again, it is so profanity-laced. Go to Kevin Miller Show Facebook or to Drudge. You'll see it. I'm sure Glenn and others will be talking about later on in the day. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. Now, again, one of the things that I do, I'm very private about things that are important to me because I don't want my friends and family targeted. Me, you jump into the arena of ideas, it's fair game. But Chris Cuomo out, and instead of seeing the guy laughing it off or whatever, the guy comes up to him and goes, hey, man, what's up, Fredo? And Chris Cuomo loses it. And it's not a good role model. It's not a good example for anyone on how to control a volatile situation. What do we always say? What does law enforcement always say? De-escalate the situation. Just simply crazy. Coming up next, the crazy libs are at it again. What you won't see or hear anywhere else, but we're going to hold them accountable next. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. Now, we take a look in Idaho. We're always talking about bringing people together, bringing people of diverse backgrounds, of diversity, of tolerance. And it's tough to go against the national trend. You have people calling Donald Trump racist and stuff, but what I'm going to share with you is put on by Comcast Communications, the parent company of NBC and MSNBC. And this is where people are declaring war on white people. Now, again, radio is colorblind. Radio, we look at people by what they have to say, and we listen to them. If life were like radio, if life were like talk radio, and not the whatever they're playing these days, we would have a much more informed and higher level of appreciation in our society today. But it isn't, so we have to deal with what we have to deal with. But in the Kevin Miller Look What We're Up Against file, take a listen to this. Now, what we're seeing is a conversation about Donald Trump. And initially they say that the slaveholders weren't racist. What does this have to do with us today? I don't know. But the slaveholders weren't racist. They were worried about the cotton prices. So this is how the libs, through their base, are firing people up.
Bugged by it, right? They're already anesthetized by it. Anybody? Throw it.
Look, I've had people call on my show in the past who are Trump supporters who are white who have bluntly said, he makes me feel better to be white again. He makes me feel better about myself as a white person.
Yep.
Now, this guy is a minority. He's a Hispanic. Nobody listens to his show on satellite radio. But look at the credibility. They make me feel better to be white again. Okay, well, you have people like my friend Joe Madison, who talks about he's the black eagle, and he says it's great to be black. It's great to be this. Again, you cannot divide people on race. Let's continue.
They've literally said that, and they're like, I'm not racist. He makes me feel good about being a white person, and that we are suffering. We are a victim. He speaks the victimhood language. So for them, we look at it as pathetic. They look at it as a champion.
You don't communicate it to them. You beat them. You beat them. They are not a majority of this country.
By the way, this is an African-American young man, Eli Mistel, AboveTheLaw.com, saying majority of white people that would be considered blatantly bigoted or racist if aimed at any other group, as he stated that if necessary for the Democrats to destroy whites who support Donald Trump. Again, hear what he has to say. You beat them, beating the white people.
Communicate it to them. You beat them. You beat them. They are not a majority of this country. The majority of white people in this country are not a majority of the country. And all the people who are not fooled by this need to come together, go to the polls, go to the protests, do whatever you have to do. You do not negotiate with these people. You destroy them.
And by the way, the black man said beat them, meaning in a poll.
Right. Now, Joy has to jump in here because he didn't clarify. You beat them, you destroy them, you get in their faces. And this, again, if a talk show host in Idaho or Iowa or Indiana who's conservative, Christian, white male said this, they would be fired. They would be fired. You don't talk about beating people and destroying people. But this goes on all the time at NBC.
Negotiate with these people, you destroy them.
And by the way, the black man said beat them, meaning in a poll, in an election.
Figuratively.
Yeah, so don't come for the black man. He said beat them in a poll. Must not who in the week.
This was a really tough week, so I had to go back to my Mr. Rogers training and look for the helpers. The person I found was Glendon Oakley. This is a 22-year-old American veteran who, in the El Paso shooting, was armed, but he put his gun down, and what did he do? He went and he saved children. He carried them out by just in his bare hands, carrying them away from danger.
Again, folks, this is why we need the power of prayer and not to buy into their hate, but to buy into God's unconditional love for all of us. And again, that's why radio wins. We don't know what color people are. We know about their ideas, the content of their ideas. We need to pray for Mr. whatever his name is. Let me get his name correctly here, Mr. Mistel, because obviously he has some depravity in his heart, in my opinion. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Rolling right along on the right side, joining us from east of the Great River, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News Radio, only on KIDO Talk Radio, right here in the Treasure Valley. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
You know, I was listening to you all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That doesn't bother you at all?
Well, I mean, I'm on the radio, so people normally do that.
Oh, all right, player. So... And you were continuing on, among your many other duties, of covering the investigation concerning the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Certainly the facts continue to unravel, and very disturbing facts, those that we know of at this time.
Yes, we have learned some new details. One of those was that he was found with a bedsheet around his neck. There is also a report that one of his guards the night he died in his cell was not a regular correctional officer. According to reporting from the Washington Post, they had quoted the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, the local union there, who said that this guard was a fill-in who had been pressed into service because they'd been having staffing issues, and that's something that's kind of been, I won't say common for this facility, but it's been ongoing there. They've even been offering bonuses for other correctional officers to transfer to that facility, offering $10,000 in bonuses if people will, go work there. That being said, this is a facility that has housed, multiple high-profile people. El Chapo is the first one we think of because that's the most recent that stayed at the MCC. He had escaped from prison twice before in Mexico. They managed to, hang on to him. Bernie Madoff is another one that had, spent time there as well before he was convicted and sentenced to prison. So it's not like this is, sort of a place that they're not used to dealing with people who need to have an eye kept on them. Also, a big question that has arisen is why was he not on suicide watch? What were the details surrounding him, not being on that anymore? Because they'd found him last month with, bruises around his neck, and he was, in a state of distress in his cell. And that's when they put him on suicide watch. Then they took him off of that. So there's a lot of questions as to why. And now there's even a letter with a laundry list of questions that has been sent to the acting director of the Bureau of Prisons from the Judiciary Committee, signed by, Jerry Nadler, who is the chair of that committee, as well as Doug Collins, the ranking member. And it goes into quite some detail, 23 questions, as a matter of fact, about the Bureau of Prisons' role in, the conditions surrounding his death, They want to know everything from if the MCC has rooms specifically designated for people on suicide watch. They want to know the circumstances surrounding his confinement. They want to, I mean, there's a lot of stuff they're asking for. That has now been sent as well.
Our great friend Tanya J. Powers joining us here. It's horrific when you think about some of the key details. You're reporting saying that apparently his cellmate had been moved out, who'd been a cop on death row. There are a lot of bad things that seem to be circumstantial, coincidental in this when we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. You've gone over a few of these, but you would think if this prison can handle El Chapo and others, why would Mr. Epstein even have a cellmate? And I'm sure the Attorney General and others are asking the same questions, even in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of questions. There's questions behind what is the FBI looking for in the Virgin Islands at Epstein's home there, where they went in to his home there. It's kind of, you kind of got to wonder what would be left there by now. Is there anything left to find that they would be able to use, or any kind of evidence, any kind of things like that? I don't know exactly what they're looking for. That's why they're in the FBI and I'm not. But I would say that, from what the Attorney General said yesterday about co-conspirators not resting easy, I would say that that's probably the next, place this goes as to, who else might be involved, who else might be facing charges in the future.
Hi, Jay Powers joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. Again, a very, very embarrassing moment for the Department of Justice.
It is. It is also really easy to get caught up in the details and the minutia around what happened and how he died, and his apparent suicide and this kind of thing. And I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that the people who are not going to get any justice out of this from him at all are all the victims. I think they're, in some ways, they're kind of getting overshadowed here. There are a lot of women who were, girls, basically children who, were, victims of this man. They are the ones who aren't going to, see any justice from all of this because, again, the plea deal that he had 11 years ago, that they weren't even told of that deal. Which, by the way, was illegal. But, they had, I think, many of them, according to Julie K. Brown's reporting in the Miami Herald, many of them had hoped that this was going to be finally the long-awaited, justice that they were looking for and, quite frankly, deserve. And now they're not going to get that.
Well, the story continues, and I know you're on the trail.
I am.
Well, thank you.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you. Tanya J. Powers joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So recently, Boise High has changed its name, right? You notice that as more and more people move into the Treasure Valley, all of a sudden people are offended by the name Braves. Apparently, you had a letter from one of the native tribes requesting the change. Now, it's just you and me. This program is anonymous. The NSA can't get into your digital or analog phone lines. Well, they can, but we're so off the radar. Let's hope that I don't think that they're going to prosecute anybody for having an opinion about this. Is it really that harmful to call Boise High the Braves? And now they're the Brave. Whatever that means, the brave and the bold and the beautiful, right? And it's just you and I having your favorite morning beverage, whether it's a cup of warm milk, cold milk, water. Everybody's into water these days, coffee, orange juice, what have you. And we're all sitting around a room, right? So you go, and maybe some of you are thinking about this. Maybe it's been a rapid discussion. This is, again, unfortunately, the woke age that we live into. We're woke. We're so offended by everything. I'm just offended talking to you or listening to you, right? We're all offended. So you have the tribes saying, get rid of all these names, savages, braves, sort of thing. And it's so funny because you have the woke Caucasians, for lack of a better term, the woke white people up there saying, this is good. I feel great about myself. And I got to believe 95% of them are the people that voted for Obama. You know, you can look for anything to be offensive, right? In Washington, D.C., let's get rid of the Redskins. Cleveland finally got rid of the Indians. Now they're just known as Cleveland. The Clevelands, right? I don't know. And I found myself, when you are interacting with people, just looking for, well, they don't like me because I'm a fatty. They don't like me because of how I look or how I act. And that's not the way God teaches us to be. You know, turn the other cheek, love the children. And you say, man, I've got to get over myself. So for entertainment purposes only, this was on either Channel 6 or Channel 9, whatever you prefer. This is their impact on all the people celebrating, hallelujah, that the Boise Braves, Boise high school mascot is offensive and gone. And by the way, what was it, the class of 95 or 97 that put up this big, nice rock picture of a Brave? By the way, the Braves, very fierce fighters. Just ask Custer about that one. We're going to get rid of that too. Let's just cleanse America of everything offensive. That wouldn't work out too well for me. Maybe I could get a job as a clown. That's what I'm doing right now. You didn't have to answer that question so quickly, everybody.
I got really, really emotional. It is so inspiring to see the community show up, and this is a change that's long overdue.
A passionate crowd packed into Monday night's Boise School District meeting where dozens of community members pleaded with board members to update the Boise High School mascot from the Braves to the Brave.
People, certainly not groups, are mascots. They're not mascots. They're not caricatures. They're not stereotypes.
Nearly every single person in the room in full support of the switch, citing respect for Native tribes who requested the change.
The indigenous people of this area find it offensive, so it is.
Right. Well, I find a lot of things offensive. What's next? The Meridian High School Warriors? We don't like Warriors. We don't like Braves. We don't like Florida Seminoles. Oh, that's right. Florida State Seminoles, who Boise State will be taking on. The Seminoles actually like that Florida State is called the Florida State Seminoles. But, sorry, the Braves, you gots to go.
Period. We know better than to use this term that brings so much pain and anguish to the Native Americans every time they hear it.
Few spoke out against the motion, but there are still those in the Treasure Valley who don't want to see that part of history change.
I do not want to be known as an adjective. I think we deserve to have a noun.
Man, that's pretty good. Adjective, noun, pronoun, person, place, thing, schoolhouse rock.
As a writer and a poet, I would like to add that it is very cool to have an adjective as a mascot.
By the way, this lady is dressed up with a lobster on her head. I'm not kidding. Like, how can you take people seriously when she's got a stuffed lobster on her head? And my good friend, the person who's planning world domination, just said, "You offend me." I'm sorry, sir. Last thing we want to do is offend people.
Not only is it open-ended, but it's also open-minded and unique.
Antoinette Kavanaugh, a Western Shoshone, made the drive from Nevada to testify, receiving a standing ovation.
We're people just like anybody else, and I think it's important to recognize that and stop with all of the name-calling.
Well, thank goodness. It's over. It's over. If you live in Meridian and you're the Warriors, they're coming for you. They're coming for everybody. So in the unfiltered, uncensored world that we live in talk radio, the last bastion of being politically incorrect and actually having an opinion, having a take at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Come on. Really? The Boise Braves? We had to get rid of it. Now we're the Brave. Hey, everybody, here come the Brave. Hey, everybody, look, there's the Brave. The Brave what? No, the Brave. Somewhere, somebody, your favorite English teacher's got to be going crazy over this. But is there really a groundswell, or is this just another example of the city of Boise being politically correct? And by the way, I'm surprised Mayor Beater wasn't around. There's not a ribbon cutting or something that he doesn't go to, that he's not making a proclamation. The people of Boise High are great, one of the best schools in the country. Let me just say that. By the way, Boise High is the birthplace of KIDO Radio. It was a group of students that put this station together. So you can blame Boise High for what you hear on the radio today. So let's not get it. People in Boise High, they're great. They work very hard. Again, a lot of libs there. They threw us out, but that's another story. However, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, are we just overreacting here a little? I mean, a standing ovation to get... Thank goodness! Hallelujah! I can sleep easier at night. We got rid of that offensive Braves. Come on, Brave. Get up, Brave. Let's go, Brave. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you. Thank you for waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up next, your phone calls. But first, it's time for our friend Ronnie G, the G-Man, the original Safer Money specialist. Ron Grant joining us now. Talk a little Saturday show. Good morning.
Good morning. How we doing today?
How you been, Ron? Wake up. We're rolling.
I've been good, buddy.
Anyway.
Doing well. It's beautiful outside.
It's a beautiful day. When we take a look at the ups and downs, there's nothing more sacred than keeping your money safe.
Yeah, Wall Street's up and down right now. The bond market looks like it's headed for a recession here. And so, you know what, here's the thing. People need to understand that there's alternative ways to put their money in and keep it safe where they can't lose the principal, can't lose the gains. This Saturday show, we're going to be talking about how the retirement moving forward will be much different from your parents. So you're going to want to tune in, grab a pencil and a piece of paper, and get some good education with Kevin and I on Saturday from 2 to 3.
Looking forward to that. It will be live. That means you'll take calls?
Oh, yeah, we'll take calls like last week. We'll take them for sure.
Well, we'll take some calls from you. Of course, you're out and about. You love the cars, the classic cars, right?
Yeah, in fact, this Saturday, I'm going to be at the Hot August Cruise and Drag at the Meridian Speedway. Starting at 4 o'clock, it's going to be out there. We've got a cruise, a parade, street drags. They're going to do a smoke and go. Guys are going to be out there burning those back tires up. And I got a car show. I think there's over 100 cars already entered in the car show. So make sure you come on out. I've got my yellow 57 short box truck, F100 out there. So we look forward to meeting everybody.
Well, we look forward to you, Ron Grant, this week, 2 to 3. Your number, call Ron to find out more.
208-660-1372.
Ron, thank you.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great day.
You too. Our great friend Ron Grant joining us to Sean in Boise. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. How are you today?
Not bad. Just being offensive. And you?
Well, I'm offended that you're offended. Okay, so I'm a quarter Cherokee and 3/4 Norwegian. And I can tell you this, nobody in my family who's Native American, or First People, as we like to say, is actually offended. Nobody that I know is actually offended. Where are these people coming from? I mean, I would be honored to have my people used as a mascot. I mean, because it's strength and power, and if a school is so, they want to intimidate their opponents and they want to, be known as the Vikings or the Cherokees or something, I would be personally proud of that. I don't understand what's happened to this country where we're so weak, so wimpy, and offended at every little tiny thing that anybody could possibly say. I don't understand. Can you help me understand that?
That's a very good point, Sean. I don't really know where I've come from. I really don't care. But, if I were like you, I'd be offended about the Vikings. That's a stereotype there. The long hair, the ale, the gosh knows what they did in the Viking ships.
Well, I would say they should give their name Berserkers. I mean, those were some of the most powerful Vikings. They would amp themselves up. They would get themselves into a frenzy before a fight, and then they would win. They weren't stoppable because they would get their adrenaline up so high that wounds did not hurt, and that's why they won. I mean, so use that. I mean, I'm not offended. I love being a Viking.
Don't mess with the Berserkers. Sean, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Our great friend Sean signing in. Traffic and weather together with Kevin Miller in the morning. Always an exciting adventure getting to and from work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up, more of your calls concerning the Brave versus the Braves. Lars Larson will join us as always. Don't forget, you can always get KIDO Talk Radio anywhere, even on your phone. We hope to earn that valuable real estate on your phone. The KIDO Talk Radio app is free. Just go to App Store, Google Play, and type in KIDO Talk Radio, and we're there. Hope to see you.